Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canada Missing Project. And you are looking at Huck L. Berry, yes, the executive producer of the show. She wanted me to show you this. She liked this. She got this in the mail. She likes it. It is Huck TV. And she's doing good. Doesn't like it's a little too warm outside for her. It's in the 50s. And we are having just absolutely bizarre weather, which I will talk about in a minute. But in the meantime, that right there is going to happen March 21st in Tacoma, Washington. The premiere. You can go to missing411.com, go to the online store, and you can sign up to attend, or you can sign up right now to stream it online if you're outside the state of Washington. So please sign up for one or the other. Love to see you there. We're going to have some fun things going on, and it is going to surprise the heck out of you. I will guarantee you that. All right. So we're going to start a new series for you. Exciting, huh? This is video number 1 of a new cluster. Never talked about it. Honestly, didn't know it existed up until a couple months ago when I started to look into this. I've written about some stories about it, but haven't gotten a lot into it. And then when I started to look into the area, all of a sudden things just blossomed in my head. And that's the way it happens sometimes. The area I'm talking about is the area just north of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And I'm talking about Marin County. Oh yeah. So, Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco, Marin County. It's a lovely area. It's extremely lovely. And talk about Golden Gate Bridge, which really starts the entry into Marin County from San Francisco. If you don't think that's strange, let me tell you. First of all, if you ever go to San Francisco, you got to park at the bridge and get the view in. If you have some guts, walk out on the bridge. It's beautiful and dress warm. It's really cold and it's really windy. But the views are spectacular. Remember, everything we do here is about water. Do you know how many people have taken their lives on the Golden Gate Bridge since it was built in 1937, I think? 2,000. An unbelievable number. A staggering number. And when you think about the horror that goes with that bridge and the amount of pain associated with all the people that have taken their lives there, and you step right into Marin County, maybe that says a little bit about why I'm doing this series of videos about this area. And what is it about this region of California that really sticks out? Oh, and it sticks out, folks. People way decades ago knew it stuck out. And from the time I lived in the Bay Area, they wanted to put up special suicide barriers on the Golden Gate Bridge, and everybody fought back and said it would really take away from the view. I didn't care that it might save lives. Yeah. I heard about it for decades. I couldn't believe there was even a fight about it. Now this story, staggering. Staggering. Well, remember, we talk about San Francisco. It's on one side of the bridge. Marin County's on the other. And this story really starts in San Francisco with a lady named Flora Elizabeth Andersen, 21 years old. She went missing September 3rd, 1956. She lived in San Francisco with her parents. Her father was a successful building contractor. She graduated from high school and went to school at UC Berkeley, right across the bay in Berkeley. Majored in political science. She excelled at Berkeley and became the director of the magazine on campus called The Campus Humor. She was also Phi Alpha Sigma, just a brilliant girl. Well, she graduated from school. She came home to San Francisco. She almost immediately got a job. That wasn't a problem. In early August of 1956, she went on a picnic for her church. Good way to meet people. And she met a man named Stanley Gordon. Stanley was a successful insurance underwriter from Belvedere on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, and was a certified pilot. Well, at the church meeting, they got along really well, and they decided to go on a picnic for their date. So Stanley picked her up in San Francisco, drove across the bridge over to Mount Tamalpais. Mount Tamalpais is on the north side of the Golden Gate Bridge in Marin County. So here's San Francisco. They went across the Golden Gate Bridge, and they went up here to San Rafael. Here's Mount Tamalpais. So they went to San Rafael because Stanley had told her that he was a pilot and asked her if she wanted to go for a ride in the plane. She'd never done that before, and she goes, "Oh, that'd be exciting. I'd do that. That'll be fun." Good first date, or good second date. The first date was going to Mount Tamalpais for a picnic on August 26th. They had a great time. Everything went well on the side of the mountain. They were looking out over the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful setting. And then they decided to go on the second date, September 3rd, 1956. So they drove up to San Rafael Airport and Stanley rented a 2-seater Aeronca tail dragger single-engine plane. I know a little bit about this. Way back a long time ago. I actually flew in one of these at Reed Hill View Airport in San Jose. It's a very slow plane, very safe plane. Well, Stanley was, like I said, well established in that area, lived in Belvedere. He went there, talked to the rental agency. They knew him. He'd rented planes from them before. And they said that he and Flora were walking across the airport holding hands, going towards the plane. Looked like they were definitely caring for each other and having fun. Now, up to this point, Flora had been employed by a company called Getz Brothers as a stenographer in San Francisco. She'd never missed a day of work, never seemed tired, never seemed down, depressed, always seemed happy and in a good mood, but kept to herself, the owner said. Well, Stanley got the plane going, got it started. Some people asked him, "Oh, where are you going?" He says, "I think we're going to go over and we're going to see if we can find the place from the air where we had the picnic." So Stanley said that they took off from San Rafael Airport. They flew north about 15 minutes. And then he said they cut over going west towards the beach, which makes 100% sense. He's here, San Rafael, flies up the valley, starts cutting west, and he's heading towards Stinson Beach and the west-facing slopes of Mount Tamalpais. Everything's going great. Well, they took off at about 3 p.m. And they just about got over the northern side of Mount Tamalpais. And I'll stop you there because I want to tell you a little bit about Tamalpais. It has a state park on it, and at the top of one of the summits, it has a U.S. Air Force installation. On the northern slope and on the eastern slope of the Bolinas Ridge, that area is owned by the Marin Water District, and it's restricted. You can't go in there. The state park has 2,000 acres, located north of San Francisco between the Pacific Ocean and the San Francisco Bay. So you're on a piece of land that has water on three sides. This is the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. It goes north up into this area right through here, which is Point Reyes. So here you have San Francisco Bay, the Golden Gate Bridge, and the Pacific Ocean. They're flying along the northern side of Tamalpais. Everyone with me? Well, the way this plane sits is the pilot, it's narrow, the pilot sits in front, the passenger sits right behind. The door is on the right side. The passenger has access to the door. Pilot, Stanley's flying the plane. Flora sitting right behind him, only a two-seater. Stanley was turning around talking to her, and he noticed about this time she kept taking her seatbelt off. He explained to her, hey, when you're in the plane, you always have to keep your seatbelt on. Leave it on. It's safe. In case we hit some bumps or something, I don't want you to get hurt. Well, they get in that area. So he's telling her this as he's flying right next to the northern side of Tamalpais, turning and just about going south towards Stinson Beach. And he said she starts acting odd, like not listening to him. They were flying. He was making a turn. He was over Tamalpais, or just over Stinson Beach, over the land. And he's making the turn to come back towards the east, flying along the southern side of Tamalpais. And as he's doing that, something happens. Well, there's an article dated 12/13 of 64 stating a mountain of mystery, Mount Tamalpais, many disappearances and deaths, except one. And that's about the article. But that's it. And then it talks about all these strange things that happen on the mountain. So it's recognized as being strange. Okay, so they're flying along. And he said they're looking for the picnic site. And he's looking out the window. And he noticed something's going on behind him. He says they're flying at 2,500 feet. When he notices Flora pushing on the door, he said he never shouted at her before, but he shouted at her to leave it alone and close it. He said she turned around with her feet, pushed it harder, and swung it open. And she then swung her feet outside the door. Okay, you're Stanley, what are you going to do? You're flying the plane. Your passenger that you're now on the second date with has pushed the door open and pushed their feet outside. He did exactly what I would have done. Stanley takes his hands off the wheel, turns around, and grabs as much of a sweater she's wearing as he can and starts to pull her back in towards the seat that she was sitting on. He said that she struggled with him crept out further. He said he tore part of the sweater off of her and she went out the door. What? Oh, Stanley's, I know he's going, what did I just see? At this time, the plane is in a nosedive, spinning out of control from 2,500 feet. Anything less than a really good pilot would have died right there. He takes controls of the plane and he starts to fight it out of the nosedive. He recovered from the spin. He got back up to altitude to make it over the coastal range and flew it back towards San Rafael Airport. Okay, friends. I'm sorry. I don't know how he did it. I would have been shaken so bad you wouldn't have believed it. Trying to find you a picture here. There's a picture of the plane he was flying. Narrow two-seat tail dragger. He landed at the airport. Imagine what's going through his mind. I can't. He landed the plane, parked it, walked over to the rental office. People said he just had a blank stare on his face. He was holding a white sweater, partial cashmere torn sweater in his hand, saying, "Call the police, it's a terrible day. Call the police, it's a terrible day." An airport attendant named A.W. Lyman said he was like he had never seen him before, clutching the sweater in a blank stare. Police officers and deputy sheriffs arrived, interviewed him. He explained what I just told you. And they said, where were you? His statement was he was 3 miles east of the Pacific Ocean at 2,500 feet near Mount Tamalpais when Flora jumped. That was his statement. He was interviewed by deputies, and then he was transported and interviewed by a detective and by an assistant chief deputy attorney. Because what they were trying to find out, did he kill her? Was this a suicide? Was it an accident? But they were going to grill this guy. Well, they brought him in and they grilled him simultaneously. Deputies from Marin County were contacted by a man named James Dugan. He was a relief fire warden and was on range patrol along Mount Tamalpais when he saw Flora's body fall from the plane. He said it looked small. He didn't think initially it was a body. And he said simultaneously, he saw the plane that she fell out of was spinning and diving out of control. And he thought for sure it was going to crash. He said at the last minute, the plane pulled up. And it was a miracle it didn't crash. Well, they had an approximate location of the incident from Stanley and from Mr. Dugan. The following day, a Marin County Sheriff Marin organized a search for Flora in the area between Rock Ridge and Stinson Beach. the western-facing slopes of Mount Tamalpais. They were originally going to go out early in the day and were delayed because of fog. There was fog the day that this incident happened as well. Sheriff said that the mountain in this area is treacherous and very rugged. He had other detectives travel to San Francisco and interviewed Flora's parents. They said that she was in a positive, good mood the day she left for a date with Stanley. She was excited. They asked her if she had any emotional, mental depression. They said the only thing that she had was she was seeing a San Francisco physician over mental and physical exhaustion after finishing her degree at UC Berkeley. They said she was drained. There was never any conversation over depression, anxiety, or wanting to take her life. It was never brought up. She was employed at what's called the Getz Brothers. And they were interviewed, and they said Flora was a good employee, kept to herself, never seemed tired, depressed. That word never came up. When detectives and the district attorney interviewed Gordon, they specifically wanted to know how he flew in the path and the time frames. He said they flew out of the airport, everything was normal, she was happy. They flew north for about 15 minutes and then turned west toward the coast. He said Florida seemed to act strange and undid her seat multiple times when they started to reach the regions of Mount Tamalpais. Friends, I've researched a lot of cases in my life. I can't say I've ever researched anything like this. Everything's fine one minute, and then it's not the next. Parents and employers said Flora showed no signs of depression. Flora, a UC Berkeley graduate, successful, everyone said she seemed really happy that day. Stanley, successful insurance underwriter, on his second date in a two-seater airplane. Now let me explain something. Let's pretend that Stanley had some bad intentions, which I don't think he did. But let's pretend he did. Well, maybe you could take some of those intentions and say, well, that might work in a two-seater plane when there's a pilot here and the passenger's right here next to you. Okay, maybe that's possible. You touch inappropriately. Maybe in a newer plane when you can put it on autopilot, maybe you can do a lot of things up there. But in that Aranca airplane, that's not so easy. In that Aeronca, Aeronca, the seat behind you is almost impossible to get to unless you're going to crash the plane. You are never going to leave that pilot seat and go into that back seat unless you're going to kill yourself. So the idea that Stanley was doing something ill-gotten with her when this happened, ain't gonna happen. I've been in that plane. It's not gonna happen. Stanley came back with a piece of sweater in his hands. Said, call the police. He didn't avoid it. He decided to take it head on. He had the evidence in his hand. He tried to save her. The chief district attorney who interviewed him at length was Roger Garrity, with a Marin County Sheriff's detective. They interviewed him for several hours. At the end, they both said, this is a case of suicide. Stanley did everything he could to save her. All of the searches at this time that I ever found were based over land. Why? Because Stanley said he was 3 miles east of Stinson Beach, and the other witness, the fire warden, was on land and saw it. Now here's the part that ticks me off. It really ticks me off. When I'm doing research on a topic, I look for newer things as well as older things. Maybe her body was found. I don't know. Well, I found a newer obituary for Flora. And it states that her body was never found because it was lost at sea. What? Where did they get that? Friends, I read 12 articles, different articles. They never said that anywhere. Let's stick with the facts. The sheriff was searching over land east of Stinson Beach. Here's north, here's south, here's west, here's east. They were searching east. Tamalpais East Peak. They were searching in the area 3 miles east. Don't try to play games with this. And this is what I don't like. They try to wrap this in a nice little package to explain the unexplainable. It is not normal not to find bodies. Fact. Here you have two people that know the spot where the body went, and they can't find it. Not normal. So, this is the first of several cases in this Mount Tamalpais, Point Reyes, Marin County area. Oh, and we're going to go into them deeply. Now, the last question I ask you, what would cause Flora to jump? If everybody important in her life, her employer, her parents, her friends, her date, all said that she was in a good mood, no signs of depression, then all of a sudden starts undoing her seatbelt multiple times, forces her way out of the plane, and bango, she's gone. Remember I said, suicide is a transfer of pain. I've said this a million times. Do you realize the pain that Stanley Gordon had to live with his entire life? That image of him looking over that seat, doing everything humanely possible to get her back in that plane and see her slip through his hands, is a remembrance I wish on nobody. You know he harbored guilt about that for decades, probably his whole life. But people who are destined to commit suicide, they don't care about that. Now, to me, it seemed like this urge to take her life was sudden, based on the area she was in. Was there something once she crossed the Golden Gate Bridge? Is there something about Marin County? Oh, I don't know about that. But you're going to read and you're going to hear a lot about Mount Tamalpais in the weeks ahead. Yes, you are. And that area along the coast from Tamalpais north. Oh, yes, you are. It's an area that nobody's ever written about, no one's ever talked about. I've never heard of this case before I found it. And lastly, I want to say that Flora's parents, can you imagine how confused they were? They left a daughter in somebody else's hands, thinking they were going to get her back happy and healthy. How many of us as parents have done that exact same thing? Please, good Lord, take care of my son or daughter while they're with these people. That's a parent's nightmare, what happened. A nightmare. I'm sure they're wondering in the back of their minds if Stanley really did something. Because if Flora was like they said, then how can they reconcile it in her mind that she wanted to take her life? Friends, suicide's a real thing. But in this area, I'm not saying it was just suicide. There's something else going on. I'm sorry. How many times have I told you about people doing sudden things to take their lives that make no sense? 2,000 people on the Golden Gate Bridge, and the number still is going north, meaning up, in Marin County. Be safe, be kind, and you never know. Maybe some kind words to somebody you don't even know may cause them to think different about the world. Maybe give them a brighter outlook on life. Maybe cause them to think twice about taking their own life. And if you're out there and you're having a bad day, I get it. Oh, I've had them too. But I would never take my own life. Because I understand the hell it would give other people of dealing with that. Whatever demons I have, I've got to take care of them. And you know what? You guys help a lot. I appreciate it. You're loved. Thanks for being here. Make sure you're still subscribed. Go to missing411.com, our online store. Sign up to go on the cruise to Alaska, and sign up to go to Missing 411 National Parks in Tacoma. Paulides out.